There you go.
Thank you.
Knock 'em dead.
Thank you. How was lunch? Awesome. Good to hear. So good afternoon. My name is Alex Castley. As you just heard, I am from Integris Credit Union, which is in north central British Columbia. So yes, that does mean I'm in Canada. And as a Canadian, we're well known to be very apologetic. So I wanted to start today by saying to you, I'm so sorry. All right? I'm really, really sorry. So picture this, it's 2013 and you are the engagement and communications manager for Integris Credit Union. You know over 50% of our membership is older than 50 years old, but we're experiencing a decreasing membership growth of a very important demographic, the 25 to 44-year-old demographic. We're also having trouble, we're having difficulty setting ourselves apart in a very competitive market. So what would you do? Well, if you're me, your solution is fun. I can hear the crickets. Okay, listen. When I say fun, what I really mean is engagement. We've heard this word before. And that has been my project, which is to recognize engagement as being a competitive advantage and a differentiator. It's not necessarily a traditional project with a start and an end date. It's more of a philosophy or a strategy. And the tactics of that strategy really depend on you, your organization, and your needs. For us, we're focusing on a younger demographic because we need to focus on sustainability. We're using fun because, well, I'm part of this demographic, and I believe fun helps to break down barriers and make an organization feel more human. But what does engagement mean? I've defined engagement as building meaningful and personal relationships with our members, staff, and communities through unique experience, communication, and involvement to create buzz. We want people to talk about us. We want people to recognize us because we need to focus on increasing membership growth. But we also want to improve our appeal in our communities. We want to be seen less as a stuffy financial institution and more as a financial institution. And we also need to start educating our future members about what a credit union is because there is a disconnect there. And we also want them to know what makes Integris different. So we've done a number of engaging activities over the last year, but what does this mean? So I've divided what we've done into 3 distinct categories, and these categories really represent how we've been engaging in all channels of communication we believe target a younger demographic at this time. This includes social media and especially during interpersonal relationships and contact. So first of all, we've become story sharers. We do wonderful things. We're one of the best in the region when it comes to service. We've won awards for this. And nobody else does community involvement quite like we do. But these days, it's not that you do those things that really sets you apart. It's how you communicate that you do those things that truly differentiates you. So we have begun using our advocates, those touched by our fun, by our community involvement, by our service, to tell the story of Integris, because coming from them is just simply more authentic and more believable. Their story, but we provide the conduit to tell the story, including using Facebook and using YouTube, which looks like this.
I was in a financial position where I needed to rebuild my credit, and I had an account with another major financial institution. Because I didn't fit into all the right ticky boxes, I was denied. So I went to another one, same deal, and finally someone had recommended the credit union, and I went there, and they don't have any ticky boxes. So I felt like I was treated like a person. They basically...
But we also need to tell our own story. We need to sell ourselves, our culture, our personality, our values, our difference. We need to tell our story as only we can actually see it and tell it ourselves. So who better to do this than our own staff? So we began using social media to sell ourselves, and as an example, here's a clip from our award-winning YouTube series called Banks No Thanks, which really tries to fuse education and fun. Credit unions are different. How? Well, let me tell you. First of all, at a credit union, you're a member, not a number. And while they almost rhyme, they're completely different. And lastly, and most importantly, we are now memorable. We've learned it's okay to be outrageous. We need it to be different because if you don't differentiate, you'll be forgotten. Of course, you have to consider certain things, such as your audience. A horse mask like this doesn't work everywhere, but it certainly works in a small town called Clinton, BC, which is a rodeo town. They love it. And fun is contagious. Who doesn't like to have fun? And for this reason, we involve everybody in the antics of our financial institution. So as an example, earlier this year, one of our branches had an idea to have an RCMP Appreciation Day to celebrate Canada's police force, the RCMP. And we decided to bring the fun and include everyone, members, staff, and community. and it had a lasting impact. So what I'm about to show you here is not necessarily something we would show publicly on YouTube. This is more an example of internal staff engagement. So to be effective, engagement must be supported from the top, and our CEO is very, very supportive of engagement. But it has to come from the grassroots, from staff, because we want to be perceived as being relatable, but we also want staff to buy into all of this. And credit unions in their nature are known to be authentic, to be trustworthy. And so we have an opportunity to capitalize on this reputation, and for this reason, you simply cannot outsource engagement. So we've done a number of engaging activities over the last year, but have we seen any positive results, any return on engagement? And I would suggest yes, we have. We've seen a 32.4% increase in membership growth when we're looking at the targeted demographic, the 25 to 44-year-old demographic. Now this is compared to a 10.2% decrease the previous fiscal year. And you might be asking the question, if we're focusing on a younger demographic, is that doing anything to our ability to attract other demographics? Well, no. We're still seeing a 6.7% increase in all other demographics when it comes to membership growth compared to a decrease the previous year. When it comes to the numbers, in the first 6 months of 2014, we achieved 172% of our 6-month lending targets and 156% of our 6-month deposit targets. And these were pretty aggressive targets, too. I'm not necessarily taking credit for this, but I am suggesting that engagement has played a positive role in those numbers. So in the end, I believe engagement is the strategy, but fun is the tactic, and it has made us into a financial institution. As I've demonstrated today, it can help us increase membership growth and retention as well, but it can really help serve as a differentiator if you really don't have any other. So now I want to turn it back to you, the audience, and ask you, how do you engage your members, staff, and communities? Thank you.
Fabulous job. So now we're going to turn it over to our judges to throw some questions at you. Let's start with Dave.
Thanks, Tim. Great job, Alex. Your original video was on external engagement, and then you've changed to the internal. Just give us some perspective on why you focused on that.
Within this presentation or just in general?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to show all the elements of engagement. Sometimes we think of engagement as just being out there in the community doing things, but it's a lot more than that. How we do engagement internally actually has a reflection on the outside, how people perceive us and our morale and things like that. But on the flip side, when we are engaging our external members, we're acknowledging that their input matters. And so I believe engagement is not just a small thing, it's a large thing. We need to engage all of the stakeholders in our organization.
Thank you. And Dee Dee?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I have 2 questions. Do you want me to choose number 1 or number 2?
Let's go with number 2 first.
Number 2, okay. All right, you used the word buzz when you were defining engagement.
Yes.
Yeah, what is your own personal buzz that added to this project?
My own personal buzz? Well, you know, I was a participant in that, in the speaker today. I can't remember his name now, sorry. But I found that to create buzz, I actually had to be the first one to get out there and do it. I had to prove that it works because I didn't want to send somebody else out there to do these silly things that you saw today. I don't always want to be the person to do them either. So I found that the buzz for me was being the proof of concept that engagement actually has an effect on attracting members.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. And Kent?
How do you keep engagement fresh internally? So you said you don't want to always be the person who's the instigator.
Yeah.
How do you drive that, or how do you encourage others to participate with you?
Right. Well, I've got a team of people like me. That's scary, I know. But there's a number of us that are engaging people. And so sometimes if I have an idea, I'll say, hey, why don't you go try this out? And they'll do the same with me. So it's a really symbiotic relationship actually between all of us. And it works really well, and I think it keeps things fresh. And we're always in tune with our staff too. It's not just us in a group doing things and hoping it works and then people saying, hey, what the heck's going on here? We actually reach out and say, what do you think of this? And in all of our branches, because we're across 5 communities, so what works here doesn't work here, so we have to reach out to both places and say, we're thinking of doing this, and what do you think about that? And so to keep it fresh, we also have to consider the needs of our communities too and what they would like to see.
Well, what a fabulous start to the day. Let's hear it for Alex.
Thank you.